Yeah, people, get with it. It's daylight savings time, and we're starting on time. Suck it up. Hello, everybody. This is Anne, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, and disembodied voice Justin, and not currently squeaking, but looking like she's more likely to take a nap any moment, Kiri. How are you guys? I see an Anki. Hi, Anki. Thanks for the double purple heart. You know I love the purple hearts. Yo, some of you at least are on time. Awesome. Yeah, I use daylight savings time to reset myself, so I can get up earlier without feeling like it's getting up earlier. So I tend to wake up earlier naturally anyway because I have an internal alarm clock that is allied to my dog, and so I just take advantage of it. Hopefully I can keep it up. Hello. Hello, everybody. Ash, the serial hobbyist. Hello. The writing's going great. I was gonna say, like, I didn't have time to check the Discord yesterday because I was working. But yeah, if anybody else is doing National Novel Writing Month, I do it every year. We can babble about our stuff and support each other on the Discord. It'll be fun. Yeah. I mean, the first part of it is really nano edit mode for me because I really need to get the final edit done on my first book. And then the second part of NaNoWriMo is the major rewrite of my second book. So for me, I'm kind of splitting it, which, back in when this first started, because I've been doing it for, I don't even want to know, like 11 years, 12 years, maybe more at this point. But when it started, they kept telling you were cheating. And then they realized, no, really, as long as you're working on a writing project, it's valid. So I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they stopped making it just for this or just for that, because everybody uses it as motivation, right? In fact, we should have a we should have a National Painting Miniatures Month, really, where we take 30 days and, somebody's probably created this already, and do a certain number of miniatures. Maybe a mini a week. That would be doable for people, even people on a tight schedule. Hey, John David Speaks, and Vimanakwa and Koroniko, and Koroniko, and everybody, tout le monde. Bonjour tout le monde. We'll go back to my high school French class. BGGS contest like that. See, I don't want a contest. Well, I guess NaNoWriMo is kind of a contest, but you're just working against yourself. It's not like you're not supposed to get it done and get it judged or anything. It's just, you're supposed to aim to get 50,000 words written, or, the equivalent amount edited. Every hour of editing you put in counts as 1,000 words in 30 days. So I think it's a great motivator for me, essentially. Let's go down to Minicam. Oh, events like that. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then cool. I mean, it's a thing, right? So Nano wasn't the first one, but it's one of the biggest high-profile creative ones now. Oh, where's my paint? Paint! We are using Dungeon Dwellers. Because, remember, troll hide. See, and I would rather do, I don't know, I guess that does kind of equivalent to it, Valendar. One a day seems very much too fast for me. I wouldn't enjoy it, right? I wouldn't probably enjoy it. But it does make you sit down and paint for a month, and that's the important thing, right? Just like Nano gets you to sit down and write for a month. The important thing is that it hopefully builds a painting or writing or creating habit in you, right? It helps you to do that by giving you an excuse to put off all the rest of your life to do it. I think I'm mostly using that one. I was using wet palette for this guy. We're going to use regular palette today just because I feel like it. Goblin skin, and I don't think I was using kobold for anything on this guy. So I'm going to grab my gemstone colors. My eldritch purple. My vampiric mist. Because remember, we were painting this guy all with Dungeon Dwellers colors. So... excellent. There I am. Okay. It wouldn't be more than a slight dent if you did that in the Madzik. You get a third of it done, which is huge, right? Yeah, one mini a week. I would be more interested in one mini a week done to a decent standard, right? And decent standard to you could be good tabletop, right? I guess everybody could probably pace themselves. Maybe everybody should have an end goal, but then I think that piles up too fast. Then again, in Nano, it's the same thing. There are people who don't start their novels till a week before the end and then break themselves, like with Carpal Tunnel, trying to get to the 50,000 word mark. So I consider Nano more of a slow and steady wins the race kind of thing, although I do tend to get a little bit behind and have to write up during the last week. So we'll see. I'm very excited about it this year. I'm very pro because I finally will get the book into its final form and will finally submit it to my top pick of agent, who will promptly reject me, and then I go on to my next pick of agent, and so on and so on and so on and so on, because that's the game. I'm already expecting rejection, so I'm okay with it. Yeah, I could see that you could do it. Good morning, D. Clearman. Yeah, that's true, Inara, that Mini-Vember would be a good way to clear a backlog. Sadly, November is never my month to paint. It is always my month to write. So, it is writing for me, for sure. I'm going to do, since we're doing this not in a wet palette, I'm actually going to mix an intermediate shade between my Troll Hide and my Ogre Skin. I was using Knoll Pelt here and there before, but I think I liked my results a little better with just mixing the two together. So I'm going to duplicate that and see what color I get and see if I like it better. Yeah, that makes sense, Valandar. Yeah, you could totally, that is a great use for 3D printing where you're like, you know what, I need a tidbit to use for conversion, and so I can just sculpt and print out my tidbit and practice it until my tidbit is perfect, and then I'll just stick it on the Mini. That's actually a great idea. And hey, you'll get a lot of 3D sculpting practice, which is even better, because it'll make you better in the long run, and allow you to do more stuff that you want to do. So that's awesome. Keep it up, man. All right, let's mix this up and see how it looks. So yeah, all the Dungeon Dweller today. I want to get his other hand and feet. I really want to do the skin, this fleshy colored parts of him. So I'm going to be mixing up Goblin skin as well, because that's what we used for our nose and ears and hands. And I also need some yellow to go with that probably, because I was using yellow and Vampiric Mist to highlight it up a little bit. So I'm going to mix this. Essentially, I know I want to work with skin, so I'm going to pre-mix the colors that I know I'm working with the skin. But yeah, Nano's off to a good start for me. By the end of today, I should be about a third of the way through my book's final edit. It's editing for brevity because it's a young adult novel, and there's definitely, like, they don't want you to be above 85k words. Which I would never, when I first started editing this book, I would never have believed I could get it down that low. But I have learned a lot about writing and editing in the interim time. And if I don't get there, it'll be close. So close is good enough for me. All right, mixing it up. I'm just putting a little water in today, so there's going to be more like a 4-to-1. 4-to-1 paint to water gives me a pretty solid coat for wet blending. So since I already have a base coat on much of this, I'm not too concerned about coverage when I wet blend. All right, I can see right away that my olive has taken over my yellow, even though I added in a ton of yellow. So I'm just going to put like a little dab of olive here and mix a new puddle of pure yellow. I also have a mix of Vampiric Mist and yellow over here. And the yellow is, of course, Ogre Skin. Ogre Skin has a lot of ochre in it, but it is definitely a yellow. And in building highlights for it, I don't just go up to this super saturated chartreusey color I've got now. I actually do go up to something mixed with white to kind of mute it out a little bit. You can see that muting effect here on his shoulder. It's not as bright as that. You don't want to use like super bright colors to highlight surfaces in general, unless you're working with a synthetic surface. Like when I was highlighting Salamander Space Marines, they're a very vibrant green and they go up to yellow. And I could go up to just a yellow, a bright light yellow, and that worked just fine because that was looking for that kind of gemstone bright quality. But when you're working on an organic surface, it's probably not going to do that unless it's like feathers or something. And even then on feathers, you get a sheen of sorts. So I'm going to use kind of a yellow mixed with my Vampiric Mist, which is my white, my stand-in white. So this is a good lesson in limited palette, where essentially I've chosen not to use pure white. I've chosen to use an off-white and a specific off-white. So any highlight I build will be using this. You can create some interesting lighting effects like that if you use a color. That's more, this is more of kind of just a soft, like off gray. So it's not going to affect things too much except to mute them just a tiny bit. Sky's Clear, thank you for the resub. 17 months. Damn, you're one of our oldest people. Thank you. It depends, Vimanaqua. You could use it that way. Like, I'm only counting the writing I do toward my book, toward Nano, but I'm also planning little sub-writing goals for my campaign for you guys on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I'm not going to count that toward my Nano goal. You could, though, if you make it your project, right? If you make it your project, like World Anvil actually does this. If you are on World Anvil, you can set a writing goal for yourself. Which is great, so it'll motivate you to try to reach that goal every day or reach that goal by the end of the month. I'm not sure. I think it's a daily goal. But yeah, if you want to write and you have a lot of backstory to write, you've got a lot of words to write. I mean, 50,000 words is pretty much half of a novel today, right? Or it's like a middle grade novel. Middle grade novels tend to come in around that. In the old days, there were novels for adults like The Great Gatsby, and those novels were definitely novels, but, they just wrote books shorter. And now people are like, your standard fantasy novel comes in between, from a starting author, comes in between 100 and 120k words. And for people like Pat Rothfuss, can come in a lot longer, or George R.R. Martin. So, once you're published and people actually read your stuff, you can get away with longer books. But we no longer see, like, the short form novel is difficult to find these days. Unless it's middle grade, right? Although I think Bridges of Madison County was kind of short. That was an old school bestseller back in the day. Every once in a while, I guess, you get a shorter modern novel. But yeah, if you wanted to do a game writing Vimanaqua, I think you could start NaNoWriMo and just aim pretty high. It's about 250 words a page. So if you're going to hit your word goal, it's about 7 pages a day. 250 words for a double-spaced page. Sorry, that's the average. For your average Times Roman 12-point font. Yeah, Stephen King also. Although he gets away with Green Mile, he managed to do the short serial novels thing, Kirniko. I'm a big Stephen King fan. I think he's honestly possibly our best American writer, modern American writer, period. I think that when he had some bad times when he was had his drug and drinking problem, but when he's good, he's amazing. Stephen King is just an amazing writer. And very, very individual style, right? Very unique style. So yeah, his son is good too. He wrote, he's doing a lot of stuff for TV, but he started out comic books. Joe Hill, that's Stephen King's son. Lock and Key, is his comic series that I really like. It's creepy. You can tell he's Stephen King's kid. All right, let's do some wet blending on this hand and get this, get the orange to kind of match around. Now I'm keeping in the greenish shadows, you can see. So I don't necessarily want all of it, although the palms are going to go pretty pink. So, double spacing is what you have to submit in. So that's what I assess word count in. If I'm looking at what I'm doing now, I'm working in double space all the time because of course I'm editing, so I'm formatting at the same time, checking my formatting to make sure my formatting is consistent. Because I wrote it in Scrivener and I edited it in Scrivener after I imported it to Scrivener, and then I exported it, and Scrivener did bad things. So I'm kind of sad, and now it seems I must write in Scrivener and not import things to Scrivener to get decent formatting for publication. Which is sad because that's half of why I wanted Scrivener, was the fact that you could export to EPUB and, do stuff like that. So Scrivener has disappointed me, but I will give it a second try. But double spacing isn't cheating at all, because you're still going for word count. If you're aiming for word count, then it doesn't matter what spacing you use. You could use 1 word a page and you'd be fine, because you still have to, use 1,700 pages to get where you're going. So spacing doesn't matter, because you don't have a page count to hit. You only have a word count. Yeah, The Shawshank Redemption, also a brilliant movie. Yeah, Stephen King is just exactly, D. Clearman. I'm with you. Lock and Key is awesome. Yeah, so that's Stephen King's son. Joe Hill is his pseudonym. He's a very good writer on his own. It's a family of writers. Like, I think only the daughter isn't a writer. I'm not sure. But all of them, all of the Kings, Tabitha, Stephen, and their kids are all writers. I guess if you grow up with both of your parents being writers, it's like something you do. Like, you grow up around that particular brand of creativity. It's like acting families, right? I always wonder what it would be like to have grown up in a household like that. Instead of, in my household, which was my mom mostly just worked, just regular part-time jobs to keep herself entertained when we were at school. And she had artistic ability, but she never really developed it. She's actually doing more art now in her retirement than she ever did while we kids were kids. I don't know where I got my writing bug from. Yeah, for sure. Like when my book, because if I submit it to agents and nobody wants it, guys, I will self-pub it. Just because after you've done this much work on something and you've built this world and you've built these characters, we'll totally be publishing book myself if nobody wants it. I mean, I have a great hope that it will be like accepted for traditional publication because that's kind of the way I always wanted to go. But if I have to do self-pub, indie publishing these days is a whole different game and it doesn't carry the stigma it once did. So I'm all for that, and you guys will be honestly the first to know. Like, did you guys know that Ed writes too? Like, I don't know that Ed has been writing recently because he's had so much to go on with Reaper, but Ed has also written stuff. He's also a writer with a book in his back pocket. He probably didn't want me to out that to you, but shh, don't tell anybody it's a secret. A lot of us, I think, have secret novels that we'd always like to write. My novel is about to become not so secret. All right, so see how we're wet blending. I'm going to get closer. I'm sorry. I've totally been painting at long distance here and not getting close so you guys can see what I'm doing. We need to focus. Focus, Rock Troll, focus. Oh, this is disrupting us. We always have to give it the mini a platform to sit on before we can get nice and close. There we go. Yeah, if it's splotchy after it dries, you've got too much water in it, Ash. So, you want it that thin for things like glazes, like if it looks like colored water. Right here, I'm working mostly with 4:1 or 3:1 paint to water. So then I can blend like this and not get splotchiness. But if your paint is like thin and it's drying like with rings, like edges and stuff, and really weird, and it's not like staying in the cracks or anything, yeah, then that's a sign it's too thin. For sure. Yeah, Mr. Rock Troll's getting along. I decided he's actually, like, if you look at him, he's not that far from done. So I thought we'd make a push today, and we'd try to get some stuff done. We'd try to, I'm going to block in the gems afterwards. So those of you who watched me do this, the first part of this, know that I painted everything green at first, almost. So I can always paint over these little gems down here. I have a mold line. Do I care, is the question. Do I care about this mold line? Oh, it's a tough one to get off, too. No wonder I didn't touch it before. Yeah, see this? This is, like, the worst. Because it's kind of a concave surface, so I really can't. I can get it off near the front, but the base keeps me from attacking it very well toward the back. So in times like this, I would probably go to green stuff to fill in this gap. I may not be able to paint this foot today. If I'm going to do that, I may want to wait and putty it. Yeah, let me just get some of this stuff off. Yeah. See if I can't get my knife under there if I angle it. But the problem is this is like indented, right? Because it's the back of the foot and here's the heel, and so you can't really get to this very well. And trying to use a file on Bones material, even Bones Black, is usually not optimal. So, yeah, I think I'm going to have to just go with it or putty it. Let's look at the other foot. This one isn't as bad. It's got one little mold line toward the bottom of the foot. There we go. We still have mold lines, but I may just go with it for now and touch it up. It isn't hard since I'm using all the same paint that I'm used to using. All right, let's try to do some wet blending on the bottom. grab some goblin skin, mush them together. Mush, 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 mush. Can grab some yellow and mix it in for highlighting. Oop, I've gotten 2. So see where that went brown? So what happens there is I still had green on my brush that I was smushing together with the orange, and then I added yellow. So it shifted toward the toes. So that's your lesson for wet blending. Don't try to wet blend 3 different colors all at once. Wet blend 2, get them to work together, then add in the third. So in this case, since I'm adding orange in to blend with this green of the foot, I can bring the orange out to the end of the toes, let it all dry, and then I can start with orange and just add a little bit of yellow to it, and still have everything look blended. So I lost the vibrancy of my orange there. Valendar's a bit too heavy for that, I think. I don't like using the varnishes. I actually find it takes me much longer to fill a gap with varnish than it does with green stuff. At that point, I may as well just whip out the green. Like, varnish is like, I put a coat in, and then it dries. And then I put a coat in, and then it dries. Whereas green stuff, it's just like, I put a layer of green stuff in. It's fixed. All I have to do is, like, tackle it once it's cured. So, for me, I do find the varnish trick is not as easy as just taking some green stuff and going. Or I find myself even more impatient with it. Because I can't just do it and leave it and go do something else, like with green, right? I have to do it, and then I have to wait for it to dry. I have to come back to it, and then I have to wait for that coat to dry, and then I have to come back to it. So it's like, for me, it's irritating. I'd rather just grab my green. So hereby, I've decided that any mold lines that I miss, I'm going to hit with green stuff. It's not really, I don't know. I'm maybe using the varnish that's not the best Valandar. I'm not a fan of the technique, so I just don't use it. I've tried it. I've used it on other things when I had to see if it worked, you know, with a particular product or whatever, or see which product was the best. Yeah, I'm definitely still going a little bit greenish, but that's all right. That's all right. I can bring it back. So, create wood effect on a flat surface. Well, I mean, if you can just, okay, Ash, so here's the deal with wood grain. Lay down your dark color first, like the shadow color between the boards, and then do big slabs of brown over the top and leave just a little bit of that dark showing between. Then you don't have to do a wash. Anybody can paint like big wobbly streaks over a dark background. I usually use like walnut for my dark or black and brown, and then so a really dark brown, and then I just use like shield brown, which is kind of our good wood color for Master Series, just over the top. And then I'll highlight beyond that if I want to bring out some wood grain. But I really wouldn't bother. If it's a smaller thing. I mean, if it's a bigger thing, then texture may work better for you, may look more real. But if you're just trying to get some suggestion of wood grain down, I would just suggest big boards by doing that. Yeah, I can see this ridge. I think that varnish might fill it, but I think it would take a couple coats, and that would annoy me. Everybody's got their little things in the hobby that annoy them, right? And their little thing, like for some people, they hate getting green stuff out. And so, whereas I've gotten like to the point where I enjoy green stuffing most of the time, and I always seem to have some green stuff work to do. So if I ever have to whip it out, I can get things done. I'm not just on one, but several models. So for me, it's pretty easy and fun. But I know some people hate it. And for you, the varnish method may be the best method ever. And you don't mind coming back and just tossing another layer of varnish on it and going and working on, you know, lunch or something. But I'm kind of a one and done painter. I just like to get a thing set and down, and then I work from there. I don't like to feel like I'm wasting time with something for over a long period of time. Unless it's got huge returns, like doing a lot of very intricate freehand. Oh, awesome, Max Styles. Yeah, I love that vampire skin. I've been using it for, gosh, 20 years now. Ever since I figured it out. Don't you love how luminescent it looks in person? It's just like almost glows. It's fantastic. Jim Ludwig, I showed him my vampire, and he was all about it. He loved her. So I'll probably finish her. For those of you who are wondering who we're talking about, this is a vampire skin demo that I did for my $10 tier for October. It's a Dark Sword mini. She's meant to be a Winter Solstice Maiden, but she makes too good of a vampire to possibly be a Winter Solstice Maiden. So I think I'm going to grab some walnut and kind of blob it around the feet here. Where is my walnut? I know it's around here. I never am far from my walnut. My walnut is always close to hand. Unless, of course, I ate it. I don't think I ate it. We're also using black indigo for this, though, so I could just use that and dig up my walnut later. Oh, I see it. It's right there at the back of my thing. So for the shading on the skin, for the greens, if you'll remember, I was using this color, which will be released for the Kickstarter colors. It's in there with Rich Indigo and Wild Violet. Rich Indigo is another canceled color that I'm hoping people will pay attention to this time because it's gorgeous. So order a lot of those Kickstarter paints, guys, and then buy extra bottles once they come out. Prove to Ed that these colors deserve to stay in production. It is your job. Your job description, should you choose to accept it. Your mission. Patreon, Nomadzique. I'm, my own Twitch channel is moving very fast toward being D&D and painting. Because I do so many other painting tutorials in other places, the Patreon, here, I feel like yet another painting channel, I started to just feel like it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And everybody really likes the D&D plus painting, so, including me. So, I don't think we'll be doing just a painting stream on Anne's personal channel. In fact, I was going to tell you guys, I'm probably canceling Wednesday streams all of this month because NaNoWriMo. The book takes precedence this month. And I'm kind of trying to figure out what I want to do with the Wednesday stream, if I keep it or not, because the streaming is really awesome, and Twitch is really nice to have for, I mean, it pays well, but, and it has good growth potential, but it also takes a lot of time out of my day. So I'm kind of trying to balance that right now. That's the hard part of freelancing, right? Is looking at, you know, how much you're getting paid, how much work you're putting into it, how much you enjoy it, how much growth potential it has, you know, and doing that analysis is part of being a successful freelancer. So, yeah, Deadbeat. If you are not my patron and you are interested in patroning me, I did a vampire skin tutorial. Here, let me show you the result, and then you can decide if you want to patron me for a month. But there she is. So I use greens and pinks with a grayer base and a whiter highlight to make kind of a luminous, very undead skin tone for vampires. It's a color that goes great with red as well. So it is great for vampires. But yeah, I did that one for my $10 tier for the Halloween. The month of Halloween. Haha, it's no longer just a day. It's a month. It's a lifestyle. It actually is a lifestyle for many people. I think I'm going to throw more water in here. But yeah, so probably Wednesday streams on my own channel will be canceled this month, so that I can get my book to where it needs to be. Freeing up some extra writing time, in short. And trying to figure out... Yeah, exactly, Val. So I'm just trying to figure out where my sweet spot is that lets me do the D&D thing, which I really enjoy with you guys. And like I said, Twitch is a very good, it's a good income stream for me, so I definitely want to do it. I love all of you who have subbed me over there. And we also appreciate all of you who have subbed us here on Reaper, because as I always say, a sub for the show is a vote for the show. And when you sub to us, you prove that it's worth keeping this show going. And any of our shows, right? Because Reaper does a lot of different stuff. You could look at our calendar. We've got a lot of different things. We've got Sadie's chatting and painting show, and we've got Michael Proctor with his awesome interviewing about sculpting and painting. And we've got Luca, who's coming up, right, on Wednesday, Justin, correct? From Miniatures Den? Justin has gone awry. See, he always just leaves me to talk to you guys, and he doesn't really pay attention. Justin's gotten too complacent about us, guys. Justin, we can't hear you if you're talking, just so you know. Sometimes you're muted, I know. So I'm bringing in a little more green here. I'm trying to even out this green that got a little splotchy up here. And make it kind of good. That's nice. See that nice blend? Like, that's a nice marriage of the two colors. This is still a bit more vibrant than this is, and you can see it's because of the highlighting. I haven't added a lot of white down here. You can always continue. Yeah, it's... My Patreon is pretty good value, Deadbeat, because if you sub like to the $10 level, you also get the $5 and the $2 level, so you get a lot of content per month. I try not to overwhelm with content. Like, I try to do like one thing a week so that people who are at their higher tiers, for $15 we do a paint along, for example. People that higher tiers, I don't want them to get like overblown, especially because I know that I'm not the only, unlike college course teachers, I know that I'm not your only class. So I try to put out enough content to make it worth a good value for my Patreon, while not overwhelming all of you who also sub to other miniatures people. Because I know a lot of you spread out your love across many of us. But yes, Patreon and Twitch are my two things that I do. I do commissions also, but I am booked, and now I am in that position of trying to catch up on commissions and get them all busted out so that I can decide if I want to take more commissions. Which is another reason I need to not do as much streaming this month. You can always bug me over, the D&D stream you can bug me about painting also. People do all the time. I just want to also have, like the D&D stream is kind of cool because I get to do both, right? I get to paint some characters for our game to, really good level and answer questions from you guys about that. And we also get to world build and eventually roleplay. So, in fact, we're getting to the end of our immediate world building. I just outlined the last few things that I would like your guys' help in deciding. So we will finish those for sure this week, which means we can start actually role-playing Zari's Prelude, which I think will be really fun. Oh yeah, Ash, back in the day, before I worked for Reaper, because I've been working for Reaper for 17 years. And before I worked for Reaper, I did a couple years as a freelance miniature painter. 1 year totally just surviving on freelance painting. And oh my gosh, yes, burnt out to the max. The key to not getting burned out on commissions is not to take too many. And the problem with that is if mini painting is your only job, that's your income. And you tend to panic and you tend to go, oh my God, if a commission offers itself, I have to take it. But then you get swamped under so many commissions, and of course you can only make progress on one at a time, and maybe it doesn't go as fast as you were anticipating with several of them, and then you start feeling overwhelmed, and that's where the burnout hits really hard. So for anybody who's thinking about taking miniature painting on as kind of a part-time job, because it's an excellent part-time job, it's a great way to make a little extra money if you apply yourself, or if you're fasting, you can be fast and clean, or you can be good. You could go for the high quality commissions like I do, or you could go for the good and fast. A lot of people will gladly pay you money for good and fast on places like eBay and Etsy. I don't know much about Etsy. I know mostly about eBay because that's where I sold back in the day. The thing those places get you is, of course, they get you commissions because people see that you can paint and they ask you to paint things for them. But yeah, it's very easy to get burned out. So be sure, before you go in, I would highly recommend doing a little bit of a study on yourself and seeing how long it takes you to paint something. And also seeing not just how many hours, but like in your average week, how much free time do you have for painting, right? That you would put toward commissions, be willing to put toward commissions. Working these things out in advance gives you an idea how many commissions you can commit to without feeling overwhelmed. That would be my advice. Oh, good. Yeah, Iggy. You ate Frost Dragon. But yeah, I love to talk the business end. So if anybody's out there thinking about doing miniature painting for, for a job or for a part-time job, I will be glad to give you, to share with you the wisdom I've accumulated. Always take in mind that this is, what works for me, and my own thoughts on the matter, and everyone is different. Everyone is different. So if you hear a piece of advice from me that you just don't think applies to you, cool, ignore it. Everybody makes their own path. Especially in the freelance world. When you start working for yourself, even if it's only a part-time gig, it's trying to master how to work with your mindset. Because everybody's got a little bit of a different wiring. And some people's motivation would be another person's enthusiasm killer. Just as an example, all those people will tell you should get a workout partner. Get a workout partner, get a writing buddy, get a whatever. in actuality, you know, or get a coach, you know, get a thing. And in actuality, that kills my enthusiasm. I'm much more of a self-starter. And I motivate myself much more successfully. If there's somebody else like haranguing me to get something done, my first instinct is to dig in my heels and like say no. The workout buddy does not work for me, nor does the coach. So that's just an example, you know. And whenever you get advice from anybody on this sort of thing, keep in mind your own wiring and how you react to things. So I'm just blocking in a really rough walnut shadow around the foot to make it stand out. I'll probably do a shadow anywhere I think that there will be a shadow from the lighting on this troll. So we are going with a pretty dramatic light source on him. So I'm going to turn on my light on my camera right now. You can see it illuminating the top of him. And I'm going to kind of line it up with where my highlights are. And I'm going to look at where the shadow lies on the base. And I'm kind of going to paint that in. I just kind of roughed it in there, see? So now I know that I can actually paint this shadow color over that entire area and later blend it into the basing. My D&D stream, Rugger Foodie, is twitch.tv/paintingbig. I was doing some regular painting over there too, but the D&D thing is really taking off. We have a world anvil and a Discord for it, and everybody is helping me. Everybody is helping me to create the world while I work on painting the first of our characters, and then we'll continue to roleplay as we paint the characters for the game. And once we're done with the party, we'll move on to, like, you know, key NPCs that you guys really like, or maybe some monsters that we'll use. So yeah, it's a fun thing. It's cooperative world building, role playing, and painting. It's kind of nuts. It's fun though. It's super fun. So let's see here. Let me block in the rest of this shading. You had the perfect storm of bad client. Oh dear. Copyrighted character, max detail work, and a minimum detail price. Yeah, people like that don't get it. Like, you could do that, but you can't paint it, right? I mean, you can do it. Tom Meyer does it, but he'll charge you $600 to do a figure. So say, yeah, I know a guy who can sculpt that level of detail you're talking about. He sculpts under a microscope. It's crazy. You're going to pay between $600 to $1,000 to get a sculpt from him. And that usually shuts him up, Valander. Yeah, you would rather sell good detail work, but keep the creative aspect and sell minis. Yeah, that's why I did eBay, Ash. That's why I did eBay, because I could paint, like, I did do research, don't get me wrong, I did do research on what sold best, and in general, I stuck to that, but I was able to pick models, like, you know, Warhammer, obviously, and Warhammer 40k were the top selling stuff for painted models. And so I would do that, but at least I could pick the models that I really liked from those ranges. Every once in a while, I would take a chance on doing a model that I just liked, but that I knew probably wouldn't sell very well. And I would suffer there. Like, I would definitely get less money than I did when I was, you know, playing the market, when I did a model I had researched and that I knew would sell. So really, you know, I would advise, depending on whether you really want to just make a little bit of extra money or whether you're angling to make a decent amount of money, research your market, just like in any business. Figure out stuff that sells well. Figure out if you would like to paint any of it. Prioritize those models. And once you're established and you have a following and you have people like kind of getting into little bidding wars on your things, that's when you can really start painting stuff that you really like and take chances more often. So it really is like, how much of a business are you wanting to make it? Or are you just wanting to paint stuff and make a little extra cash on the side, even if that turns out to be very little cash if it's not a popular thing? Those are the questions you want to ask yourself. And what you paint also is going to shift the clientele that you attract. If you paint a lot of Reaper character figures and villains, then you're going to get those people watching your auctions. If you paint a lot of Warhammer, you're going to get that clientele. If you paint a lot of Warhammer 40k, you might lose the fantasy market. That happened to me. I loved painting fantasy, but I would more often paint 40k because it made better money. And then essentially I had somebody come up to me afterwards and say, "Oh, I would have commissioned you to do this big fantasy piece for me, but I thought you only painted 40k." So you do want to diversify a little, but understand that just like with writing, your clientele is going to expect you to do some things, and that clientele might not be as receptive to certain subject matters that you split off and do in your own thing. Yeah, exactly, Val. Yeah, I don't like to be pushed. Like, I am capable of self-starting. I know kind of how to trick my brain into doing it, so I don't need anybody else trying to push me. Encouragement is great. Pushing is ridiculous. Like somebody trying to really convince you to do something, you just feel pushed. All right, cool. We've got a shadow, and you can see the hand, the shadow of the hand. His head is a little bit up front. I probably need a shadow here too. There. That head shadow is probably right about there. There. Kind of like that. See what I'm doing? It's inexact, but in a diffused light, the shadow will be inconsistent anyway. And of course, I'm going to put some highlights and details down here eventually. So that's a pretty good shadow started up. Yeah, max styles, exactly. Whatever the current big army is where the money is, right? And if you like that army, then it's extra bonus. Then you get an excuse to paint the models that otherwise you might not pick up. Away and take a running jump at yourself. Wait, I've got to do this with the accent if I can. Away and take a running jump at yourself. There we go. I knew I could do it, Kroniko. It's probably a horrible Scottish accent, but I did go to Scotland and I did kind of study the accent because I used to do a lot of theater. But I believe it is away and take a running jump at yourself. Or close. Yeah, I can do a lot of accents, actually. I don't do them on stream, but I was big into theater in high school and a bit of college. So I am actually able to... You guys, actually, those of you who are on my D&D stream, you're going to find out. Because I am very likely to reach for... Once I figure out, like, what accents I can do for various races or nationalities, I may go there. It depends. I don't overuse it. I don't like to overuse it. I think that it's best used... I think accents are best used when you've got a really memorable NPC. That's very, very... From a very unique place. Otherwise, you get just kind of, like, slammed into always doing this accent, and it gets old. But it is a great way to add flavor to certain characters. I had an Irish werewolf in one of my werewolf games, and it was super fun to do his accent. And I never got tired of it, because all the characters loved him, so... Yeah, do a very strong Midwest US accent. Well, that's my goal. That's where I come from, right, D. Clearman? So, yeah, totally. I went to the East Coast, but I didn't, not the worst accent you've ever heard. Yeah, you're right, Kroniko. East Coast. Mm-hmm. I'm one of those people who picks up on accents really kind of just subconsciously and tends to mimic them subconsciously. My mother was always yelling at me in Scotland, telling me to stop mocking people, and I wasn't even conscious of switching to the accent. It's just like I'm one of those verbal chameleons that kind of switches to the speech patterns of the person I'm talking to. And it's very subconscious with me. If I try to notice it, I can. And I can derail it, but it always feels a little weird to me to derail it. Because I guess it's just you're trying to, like, you know, relate more to the person you're talking to. It's that subconscious wish to belong, right? That you're just trying to copy their speech patterns. So I came away from Canada with such of a... I was out in Vancouver, and the Vancouverans have an accent, but it's slight. So I hadn't even noticed that I'd adopted it until my mom picked me up at the airport and yelled at me. Why are you talking like that? Like what? So it did make me pretty good for acting. I had fun. I got to do a Southern accent in one play, and it made the character. Like, she wasn't supposed to necessarily have a Southern accent, but she seemed very Southern to me, so I gave her one anyway. Alrighty. Lots of noises. Or noises. Is it the glottal? Fiona, yes, Valandar. Irish accent's much easier for me than Scottish. I find that Scottish is a little bit closer and a little bit shorter, and it's not as bouncy. Whereas the Irish accent is super fun. Super fun. I just love using it. So yeah, I use Fianna. I always loved the Fianna clan. I always loved the idea of them. So I am such a werewolf fan in general. But the accent I never could do is Russian. Like I can kind of I could try if I hear somebody do it, then I can usually mimic it. But it's not one that ever stuck up here. Yeah, Scottish can be more guttural, exactly. You get more Scottish the further away you go. That's awesome. That's a defense mechanism, right? Yeah, it is a little more guttural. That's why I say it's closer, it's shorter. It's the Irish is very rolling and it's bouncy. Irish is Irish is halfway between Italian and Scottish in cadence. I don't know. Uh it's weird. Accents are so funny. Yeah, but then I grew up in the Midwest, so of course I wasn't very accentful. I had the Midwestern accent, which is the most bland accent ever. It is the vanilla of accents, which is why newscasters always try to adopt a Midwestern accent. I'm trying to figure out where the toenails are here. He definitely has, and I'm sketching them in dark, even though I'm going to be painting them lighter eventually. But I mean, he's gonna have dirty toenails. Let's just admit that he's a rock troll. Oh no, I missed some color over there. I missed a spot. See my spots? Oh no, your Scottish got so bad. Maybe when you're under stress, do you accent more, Kuruniko? Because I could see that, when you're away from home, it's a little stressful, and especially if you're afraid people won't understand you, and maybe that makes it worse. I'm just trying to block in my area that I totally screwed up on there on the interior of the foot. And there's a shadow, really, so it should be a little darker. Because the inside of the leg is always going to be a bit darker, so I've got to block it in a bit darker. Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. That's, yes, stress-induced extra accent. Yeah. I think that's fairly common. I think that, or at least it's not uncommon, right? Because I hear about and read about people who, when they get stressed, their accent gets stronger. All right, now I have toes. Toes! I do want to put a little bit of green shadow down there to darken it. I gotta pick up the white around. There's a little bit of white around those toes. It is Socrates. Thanks for showing up. We can always use more philosophy here. I took a lot of philosophy courses in college, too. I was very much a college, let's just take whatever classes I feel are interesting kind of student. So I took theater, art because it was my major, philosophy, English, archaeology. Oh, what else? There was some computer science mixed in there, just 'cause. But I really did not like coding very much, so it wasn't my thing. I gave everything a try. I bet. Yeah, fake English accent's pretty simple. I can do British. I can do Cockney, and I can do regular British. The confusing one is Australian, which is really a cross between British and Southern American in a weird kind of way, because it's kind of bouncy that way. Why does this troll have 3 toes on one foot and 1 toe on the other? I'm gonna say that this is, or 4 toes. This is all 1 toe, and it's just a little bit weird. I'm just gonna say he's a bit mutated on this side. He is a rock troll, so he probably is a bit mutated. A wrestler and really smart in high school. Socrates. Well, you could certainly have allied yourself with a lesser philosopher, so I approve. All right. I think that works. I need to highlight these toes a bit more, but hey, he's got feet, guys. He's got feet. For the first time, he's no longer up. Oh no, we missed a spot. Achilles heel. Ah. It is a weird one. Like, some people, like Victoria Lamb, who's has Victoria miniatures. She sounds more like a relaxed Britisher, and I think she's from Adelaide. No, Melbourne, maybe. I don't remember where Victoria is from. But then there's definitely an Australian accent that's has a lot more of a bounce to it. And it always reminds me, when I was trying to figure it out and speak it, I was always having to think of it as kind of a weird child of British and Southern American. Because it's got a bit of a drawl to it at times. And it definitely has a bounce. It's just funny. Accents are so interesting. And I'm wet blending a bit to get a little bit of a highlight on that heel. There would be a little bit of one. I want to mix in more orange though. Got a little bit too green. Don't want to lose my orange. Although I did have yellow on the heel of this one, so I guess that makes sense. Yeah, and I haven't been in New Zealand yet. That's one of my... David has been, but I haven't. It's one of my goals. One of my goal things to visit. Goal countries. I want to see where... I want to see where Lord of the Rings was filmed. I want to go to Rohan. It looks like a pretty, pretty area. Alright, let's get back to this. I feel like this color is not very useful to me as it stands, and I want to add a little bit of vampiric mist to it. So this chartreuse color that I mixed up, I haven't touched once, which says to me that it's missing something to make it usable. Let's see here. I'm going to drop a drop of white into this chartreuse, or vampiric mist rather, because that's what our white is for this project. And I'm going to drop more water in there because we just added white. That's going to lighten it up a bit. Wash it out a little. Makes it a little more useful to me. Yeah, I've heard you can do Lord of the Rings tours, which is awesome. I mean, great tourism excuse. Embrace it, New Zealand. I think that David's parents might have done that, in fact. Except they weren't really into the movies, so that was kind of lost on them. It's funny that his parents are like not nerds or geeks at all, but David is like a huge nerd geek, ultimate nerd geek. At least my dad was into science fiction, so I come by it honestly. So now I'm just doing some lining. I've got this walnut out. I work pretty organically, as you guys can see. I'm just kind of going from one thing to another. I've got all these colors out, so I work on whatever it occurs to me to work on. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, now I want this, now I want that. Now I want a bit of a shadow around this belt on him, so I'm going to actually line with some walnut. This looks like, it looked like a bag, but now it kind of looks like a bone. Oh, I think it is. It's a hollow bone with a little plug on the top, so it's actually a water skin, a water bone. That's interesting. I guess, you know, he probably isn't really into tanning. His technology level probably isn't super high. But it makes sense to use a hollow bone for that if you're going to suck out all the marrow anyway, because you're a rock troll, and that's what you do. Not very high-tech rock trolls. Ah! Oh, JT, that's more of like a West Texas, East Texas, Southern Texas thing. The thing is that Reaper is in North Texas, and that means we're very close to DFW, which has a lot of transplants in it. And Denton itself is a college town, so it also has a ton of transplants. So there are a few native Texans. But the closest one, the one that we have on stream a lot, is Ron. So Ron's kind of soft drawl that he's got going on, that's North Texas accent. So he'll do y'all, and he's got kind of this drawly thing going on. And I talked a lot like it when I was down in Texas. Texas. When you tell you Waxahachie and Denton. I didn't pick it up like terribly, but Ron's got a beautiful North Texas accent. I think, like, he's got a very indicative, he's got enough of one that you can tell he's got a slight Texas accent, but that's really how North Texas kind of rolls. So it's definitely regional. I mean, if you look at how big this state is, it shouldn't surprise you that it would have different dialects, just like London does. Yeah, exactly. East and west and south, way down. The edges. The edges. That's super, Valendar. Yeah. I think we have a lot of second generation D&D players now. All the people who love it have brought up their kids to play it. I'm going to get his fingernails now since I've gotten his toenails done in. I'm going to do them all dark. Lets me keep dark at the roots when I bring them up with highlights. Yeah, I heard of that twistoma, but I had heard also that I don't know if I doubt they rebuilt it, but I'm sure you can still visit the site. I mean, Rohan itself looks like it was on a pretty beautiful area. And Helm's Deep was in a pretty cool area too. But yeah, I mean, the problem with keeping a set somewhere is, one, you didn't build it to last that long, right? And two, who's going to pay for upkeep, right? Is it going to fall to pieces and be dangerous? So I could totally see how you would want to break down the sets, especially those huge elaborate sets. When indeed there was a huge elaborate set there, because, you know, some of it's just clever photography and models. But I could see how you get in those questions, and so then, you know, you just wouldn't. But then, yeah, after the big commercial success, I'm sure somebody struck a deal with the local town to preserve Hobbiton, and they took over the responsibility. But back in the early movies, I could see why he wouldn't. I mean, haha. Even Hakwa, you're funny. Mostly doors, but you can go inside the tavern and get a beer. That's cool, Sky's clear. That makes sense. Alrighty, so I've lined around stuff. I've got that. I need to get these other claws. We're progressing. We're progressing on our rock troll today. We're covering up a lot of things, and we're getting things blocked in so we can work on them a little more. When wet blending, I really am just blocking in, and then I can go back with layering and nicely thinned paint and do some nice highlighting. Of course, most of the... Oh, no. Wrong color. Blorf. Wrong color, Anne. Luckily, that Blorf was easily rescued. I do need to add some some black indigo shadows under these muscles, so I do need to do some wet blending here, and a lot of this leg is going to be in light. Like, you can even see it. If you look at it, you can see the light falling on it, right? So you know that this is going to be bright like this is up here. So we have a lot of work to bring that front of that leg up. Yeah, you always be careful with voices in games. I could see that. Just call me Dirt. I mean, I think also that people take things too personally, my opinion. However, I'm unlikely to do, and I doubt it's, I doubt it's harmed his ratings too much. But yeah, I mean, there's always the case that where, you know, you can really insult somebody inadvertently by using an accent. So, what that says to me is that I should not give an accent to a villain. Unless it's my own accent. Because we all know I'm evil, so, you know, I'm not going to offend myself that way. Critical Role is also an exception since it has such a large viewership. But yeah, you can always, I mean, there's always the chance that you will offend somebody by something you do. So, if you choose to do something, always know that you be conscious of that if you are in the public eye. Any accent I'm likely to do on my game is bound to be pretty subtle. I don't really want to go over the top and assign accents to all the nationalities because, like I said, it gets tiresome. Then you have to remember to switch. And there are a couple of characters that I might have a little bit of accented speech for, but you do better when you do speech patterns, like they did with Yoda. Doing a speech pattern still makes the character distinct and is a lot easier. All right, so we're getting some stuff. Whoa. That's not good. Yeah, like, that's really not good. Somehow I doubt that. I mean, if Matt really said that, then Matt, come on, get with the program. That's not adequate for, like, the modern day. But part of me thinks that maybe there is a little bit more to it than that. I never believe anything that I read or hear. I go to the original source and watch it, so I'll have to look it up. But, if he did say that, then I'm disappointed in Mr. Mercer. That's why I try never to learn too much about celebrities that I like. If I like their work otherwise. Because you can have somebody who's a brilliant artist or a brilliant writer, and who's also a great person, like Pat Rothfuss, who wrote Name of the Wind, and who does, you know, huge amounts of charity work. To help people around the world, like, get out of poverty and make their own businesses and, you know, become financially sufficient. Or you can have somebody who does brilliant work and is kind of a jerk. And, it's just people. Yeah, I'm gonna do voices. I just don't think I'll do I won't go too over the top with it. The problem with going too over the top with a voice is that immediately your characters tend to, like, it tends to be comedy. If you go too crazy, unless it's, like, deadly serious, like a villain, you know, who's about to eat you. A monster. But I don't know, it can go comedy, it can go sideways on you, easily as a GM as well. Although doing it, giving an accent to a character that you hope the party will love can work for you, or it can backfire. Really depends. It's it'll be interesting. This is obviously doing the stream game is going to be a larger audience, quote unquote, a larger player group than I've ever run for, and a more diverse one than I've ever run for. So I'm very interested to see how it plays out, quote unquote. Yeah, I know. I saw that we lost Sean Connery over the weekend. 90 though, right? I mean, damn. I mean, he was in good shape even in his 70s. He's one of those men like Patrick Stewart. They get older, but they don't get less sexy.
Hey, Miss Ann, I'm back.
You're back! Yeah, we were like, I called to you earlier, but you were the busies. So.
Did you? I assume you didn't get my text message then.
Oh no, I try not to be distracted by that. I silence my phone during
No
things,
problem.
and I
No
wasn't
problem.
expecting a text message. So, oh okay, there it is. I see. It wasn't urgent, so I didn't need you, so to speak. It was just a question about Luca starting his show. Did he start last week or is he starting this week?
He, he's starting this week at 3 p.m. In
Yes.
fact, I'm working with Ron today on. I've branded the show, I think, on how I want it to look.
Okay.
As far as like, at least for now, it's gonna develop as most shows should, given the time, right? Because
Right.
anyway, but yeah, it's supposed to start this Wednesday at 3 p.m. But I'm working with Ron on kind of getting the last bit of details worked out as far as branding and hopefully it goes over without a hitch. We're supposed to be setting up the studio right now. I will say though that I am at home because my fiance yesterday woke up with a I say woke up. She most of the day had a fever and was
Oh.
had body aches
Uh
and
oh.
uh, pre-COVID years I would have said looks just like the flu kind of thing, right? But
Right. Right.
luckily she hasn't had anything other than those two symptoms. And she doesn't feel great today, but she's functional.
Right.
Um, so now it's kind of if it's not one thing, it's another, right? It's just anything to slow down progress.
Right. Exactly. So, what's the shtick? Give us all the shtick on Luca's show. Like, what should we expect from it?
Uh, so Lucas, so I would say I would expect his various styles. I think that one of the things that we got a lot of feedback for when we did the first show was people loved he and I's banter, our conversation, kind of like the with Proctor's show,
Yeah.
the back and forth, because ultimately we're two people that are very 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 similar in age. I would say we're only a couple of years apart from one another, and but obviously we grew up on different sides of the earth.
Yeah.
And so having, and as far as I've had lots of friends and people I've talked to in the past who come from other countries, but I've never talked to anyone who's from Italy.
Ah.
And it's just interesting to see his take and my take and kind of how we meld them together and how we're open-minded about stuff and about the process, being that there's a process for making videos too, just like there's painting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and he has his comic book art style that he does really well, as well as a couple of other different styles, and we talk about food too, kind of like you and I do, Ann.
Yeah.
I would say he's the only other person that I have good food conversation with.
Oh, all right. All
So
right.
I
Good.
look forward to that. I
He's
would
a
say you could
foodie.
probably see that. Yes, he
Oh.
is.
All
Well,
right.
specifically for pizza, shocker.
Oh dear. Does he consider American pizza a travesty?
No, actually, he's on the other side of the coin. So you have those people that, because I think as most people who know anything about pizza knew about that what is it, that Pizza Foundation that was created not that long ago, right? The
Yeah.
one that gives people here that stamp of authenticity for
Right.
wood grilling, or not wood grilling, but wood fired ovens, and I can't remember the
Yeah.
name
I
of the
remember
organization.
talking about this with you
Yes,
briefly. Yes.
yeah, and so he's actually of the opinion that it doesn't need to be um, it doesn't need to be like that in order for you to just have great pizza, which I agree. As soon as if you break down all the walls and this misconception that just because it's supposed to be from a place, doesn't mean that you can't get it as good or not better other places where the meeting of the minds has occurred, right?
Yes. Right.
Where there's overlap in different food styles where people get together and they make something better than it ever
Right.
was in the
Yeah.
original place.
Yeah. You evolve, or at least like different in an awesome way. Right.
Absolutely
Yeah.
correct.
Because I'm sure there's
So,
still a lot of fans of the traditional pizza. But yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
like the Neapolitan style. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
the original, and he did. I think he did once on a stream. Now this wasn't with our stream that we did together. I think he once mentioned on stream that he thought that the pizza places near him, or at least some of the pizza places in Italy, felt that because they were doing pizza and they were calling it traditional and it was in Italy, that they didn't have to try as hard, so they weren't using as good of
Oh.
ingredients. So the pizza
Oh.
actually didn't turn out that well.
Oh, that's a
Um,
shame. Yeah.
because they're not having to fight for it, right?
Right, right. That's interesting.
But I thought that was an interesting take too. See, that's the kind of tidbit of information that I imagine you only get unless you're living in, somewhere in Italy and you're sampling the pizza all over the place to kind of
Right. Yeah, being a pizza connoisseur, in fact.
correct. Because
Yeah,
you're not going to see
interesting.
that on the Travel Channel.
So here we are, guys. We're doing our leg. We're highlighting it all. Oh, don't say pineapple in front of it. I love pineapple pizza. He'll just have to deal with it. I'm the person keeping pineapple pizza going. Well, except that I can't eat pizza anymore because of tomatoes. So he's safe.
Wait, do you really like pineapple pizza?
I adore it. Oh, I think it's one of the
I
best inventions.
Oh no, I mean I agree that culinarily the contrast between the acid and the sweetness of the
Oh
pineapple
yeah.
with cheese,
Uh huh.
it's an age old thing. People have been doing it for thousands of years since we've had cheese and fruit, right?
Right.
So like it's not a crazy thing to do, but as soon as you introduce into the modern era, right? The
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to put something sweet on top of something that's supposed to be greasy and savory, it just becomes like this moment where people have just they go up in arms,
There are
even
some
though
people who really dislike the combo. Yeah, some people who
yeah,
don't want any sweet if they're salty. At least not as this part of the same food, right? Yeah,
yeah,
they want it to be a separate thing. They're
even
not going to
though
turn down dessert.
yeah, no, right. I mean, but even though like culinarily,
It's been a thing
it's
for
like when you
ages.
combine, right? It's like when you have complementary colors. It's you can hate it all you want, but it makes complete sense on our palates. Like, let's
Yeah.
be honest.
Yep. Exactly. I agree. So
Even though
light me up.
personally, I find it abhorrent and I would never eat it. I'm sorry, Anne,
That's fine.
but I understand it. I really do.
97433 already out of stock. What is that, Zorblack? Which product? Oh, melon and prosciutto. Yum, yum, yum. Yeah, I'm with you, Sky Clear. That's tasty. Everyone can have what they want. Yes, exactly. I'm sure somebody thinks that kiwi goes on pizza. I'm sure somebody, somewhere.
There was an internet meme going there for a while. I'm sure you saw it, Ann. But
Yeah.
the internet meme about pineapple on pizza.
Yes. Yeah, I've always liked it. Like, because I like sweet stuff, and I especially like salty sweet stuff. So for me, combining sweet and savory, I just adore it. Do it all day, every day. It's great. My favorite thing. I do that all the time. I put sea salt on my brownies and, when I bake and stuff like
Oh
that.
man, sea salt is one of the best things you can add to a really good pastry. And you know what? I don't care what anyone says. It is the perfect way to make it perfectly balanced, right? Because if it's
Hmm.
too sweet, then that's great and all, but you don't want it. You want to take 3 bites and then go into a coma.
Right, exactly. Oh, it's our black. I see. Reaper Bones for November. So that's out of stock. Okay. Okay. All right. So we're getting our stuff going on here. But yeah, I really do like salty and sweet together.
Star Wars, they was talking about pineapple salsa. Don't you make or have like a peach salsa or something you really
Um,
like?
I actually, when I need to sub tomatoes into something, and obviously I can't have tomatoes, they seriously set off my digestion. They're very bad for me. I will use peach as a substitute because the texture of peach is very similar. And then what I do for the flavor additive is you add some tamarind paste. Tamarind paste being, mostly used in Indian cuisine, but it has like an acidity that's almost identical with tomatoes. So when you add just a little bit of it to like beef stews, you get that same thing you get from tomato paste. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, it's a little bit of a different flavor, and don't go overboard on it because it is really pungent. It's very strong. But that way I can make a beef stew that's perfectly okay, even though I'm not using tomatoes at all, even if I want that acidity pop that tomatoes are usually used for. So yeah.
So so when you make salsa with this, do you also put onions and like cilantro and
Oh
little more
yeah,
type
like
of okay.
the only way to do salsa, like I don't use a tamarind in the salsa usually because you use lime, so you get your acidity that way. Lime and cilantro, and onion are all necessary, I think, in order to make it feel more like a salsa.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, so much salsa, so much like really fresh salsa tastes heavily of lime anyway, and it is a little bit of an overwhelm over the tomato. So you can make a very good salsa without tomatoes, with peaches and jalapenos and all this stuff. Yeah, I know, Socrates. Some of you guys have that horrible gene that means that you can't enjoy cilantro. Happily, I can.
And that's unfortunate because I love. I will eat cilantro as a garnish or even as a green in something, and virtually every cuisine.
That's
I would eat
crazy.
cilantro on pizza probably.
Yeah, I
I probably
use
would.
it a lot because we make Cuban rice a lot, and Cuban cooking has a lot of cilantro in it. And then we do, of course, we do guacamole, and we always have cilantro in that. So I don't think I can eat it on as a salad green, but I definitely have it in a lot of things mixed in. Um, but yeah, so that's all good. Sweet. Yeah, I don't do salsa type stuff much because I far prefer guacamole, and since I'm on the keto thing on low carb, high fat is good. So salsa is not very high fat, obviously. So the guacamole fits better with my diet.
That sounds good too, Dirt. Pesto sauce with chopped chicken. Mm.
I just made pesto salmon last week, guys. We made extra pesto so that David could freeze it. He freezes it in our ice cube tray. We have an ice cube tray for broth, and he'll take up half of it, and we'll freeze the pesto. And then when he wants a caprese sandwich, when he does his mozzarella and tomato sandwich with basil, he'll put the pesto on top of it, and that's super tasty, according to him. I can see how it would be super tasty, even though I have to avoid tomatoes.
Are you a fan of kind of to JC's point up there? Are you a fan of white sauce pizza? Because I know up in the north, because someone asked earlier too, up in the northeast, they'll actually put clams on it too.
Oh, I'm not actually. I like if I'm gonna make a pizza for myself, like if I'm gonna buy like the almond flour crust to do the keto pizza, I actually use pesto for the sauce.
Really?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. I just don't really like a lot of white sauces that I've had. I find a lot of them very bland. I'm sure I could make a very good one, but I don't know what I'd use it on. It feels just a little bit too much on pasta. It's a little bit too much of the same flavor profile. So yeah, I probably prefer if I'm gonna do Italian, I prefer to do pesto, for sure. We don't actually. We do. There's one exception, and that is carbonara, the sauce that is the just the egg yolk and the cheese, pretty much, and pasta water. The carbonara that uses pancetta.
Oh man.
Yeah, so we'll do carbonara, and David will make it. That's one of the things that he makes, one of his dishes. And yeah, it's really just it's a super rich cheese sauce, but it doesn't use it uses like egg yolk and a little bit of egg white and the fat from the pancetta and cheese. And then a little bit of the pasta. The pasta is supposed to be super hot when you put it in, and it cooks the egg and melts the cheese. And it,
That sounds perfect.
yeah, and then you've got tons of bacon or It's supposed to be pancetta, I think. Or actually, it used to be like I think a very specific form of Italian ham, but we use pancetta because we have it. So very much highlighting the leg now, guys. As you can see, I'm going to leave a pretty strong shadow underneath it. Notice also that when you have a rounded muscle mass, you make your highlight round. If you make your highlight flat or square, it will make this muscle look like a different shape. Yeah, carbonara is... That's usually when Anne is too tired to cook. David, please make carbonara. And now that I have miracle noodles that I can eat, I can actually have it like without eating gluten. Before I would have to have a tiny bit of real pasta with it. But I like my miracle noodles, so I'll use them.
On kind of a separate note, because we did touch on it, or you touched on it earlier. What was your favorite Connery film?
Oh yeah, I see somebody didn't like him Bond. I mean, I'm from a fairly younger age, but I grew up on the original Bond movies. My dad had them all on Laserdisc back when Laserdisc was a thing. So I remember Sean Connery quite fondly as Bond. I also liked him in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I think that that was possibly one of his best movies.
Oh yeah,
Because he and Harrison Ford had such a great rapport that it elevated the movie beyond what it was, and so
I completely agree.
yeah.
I had forgot about. Man, now I need to watch that.
Yeah, I loved all the Indiana Jones flicks, but yeah, I was happily surprised that Last Crusade was so very good. So
Yeah, I'm with you though. Like I grew up. My uncle owned them on DVD and VHS, I
yeah,
believe, all the
yeah,
Bond movies.
yep,
And I remember when I was really young watching the originals.
yeah,
Doctor No
yep.
and on and they were fantastic. I loved Sean Connery in that. I like
Yeah.
Sean Connery in Highlander.
Yes, me too. I think Sean Connery actually made Highlander what it was. I think without Sean Connery, you don't get it as much to be as much of a cult classic as it is.
Completely agree.
Because without that student mentor rapport, you don't. That the movie just fails. So yeah. So there you go,
What
guys. There's a leg.
wasn't he in Dragonheart
I don't
as a voice?
remember. Yeah, he might have been the dragon, wasn't he? Or I don't remember. Yeah, I'm not certain. I would say off the top of my head that I liked him as Bond when I was a kid. However, I love Daniel Craig as Bond, and in my mind, Daniel Craig is far sexier. Um, Thank you. Daniel Craig is another one of those guys who might turn into a Sean Connery, where he just gets sexier as he gets older. I don't know. We'll have to see.
I don't know. I'm objective. I can be objective here because not typically attracted to men, or at all really in that sense. But I will say that I think Sean Connery and his Scottish accent is far
Oh
sexier.
yeah, that's true. That's true. He did have that. Yeah, and that definitely did act. It's just like Patrick Stewart, the other sexy old guy out there. He's got that awesome
Oh
British
yeah.
accent. He's freaking 80 something, and he's still sexy. Like I watched Picard. I watched most of Picard. I didn't finish it, but I was like, damn, Patrick Stewart, you are still an attractive man. How do you do it?
He ages well too.
Yeah, he aged really well.
He really does.
Yeah, he's still active, you can tell, and he's still got all of his brain cells. He's really just awesome. I'm a huge Patrick Stewart admirer. So Picard is my favorite captain. So.
Oh yeah, mine too. Also, unpopular opinion. Because I love the James Bond movies so much, I hated Daniel Craig as James Bond.
Aw, too bad. Yeah, see, I already had an awesome association with Daniel Craig because I love the Tomb Raider movie. So I already thought he was cool. And then they cast him as Bond, and I was like, really? And then I watched as much as I could of the first James Bond. Is very violent, so I couldn't do a lot. But I still like him as Bond. I think he makes a good, tough Bond. I also, though, I am a very open-minded Bond fan because I also thought that Pierce Brosnan brought the silly Bond back, right? He brought the really, high-tech gadget silliness back, and they're all aspects of the Bond movie, right? It's all different aspects of it. So I think I appreciated almost every Bond just for their own different take on the character.
Yeah, I mean, my growing up, and it may have been because of when I grew up, but my absolute favorite Bond of all time, and probably doesn't surprise you, is Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
Loved me some GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Loved it.
That is pretty cool. Oh, well, let's see, what are we? Oh, we have 8 minutes left, and I'm painting a trollbot. Trollbot. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. The Avenger. Yeah. Sean Connery, I think later in his life just had a lot of fun with his roles. I don't think he just picked a movie that he thought would be fun, right? Because League of Legendary Gentlemen was not a great movie, but it was a fun movie.
It was good.
Yeah, it was a fun movie. So I think he just picked it. He's just like, yeah, I don't need the money at this point. I'm just going to take on projects that sound like they're fun. And I could see why, especially his generation, why he would want to be Alex Quartermain. Because that was, a pulp action hero probably that he read as a kid. I bet I would bet on it. That he was familiar with that. And so I thought that was
the timing
probably
makes sense on it.
Yeah,
so
it
you're
does.
Right, probably.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense that why he would choose, because that was his last movie.
Objectively, the more I think about it, I didn't like Daniel Craig as Bond, but I still think he did objectively a very good job with the character.
Yes.
But like now that I'm thinking about it, was there a single person who played Bond that just most people can agree was bad?
No, I don't think there was.
Think
I don't think so, because I think the people behind the Bond franchise are extremely careful about it. Like, I think that you really probably need to screen test perfectly to get that role.
I think so too.
Yeah, because it's such an iconic role. It's gonna make your career. and you can be relatively sure that it's going to lead to more than one movie, right? So, and the movie's probably going to do well at the box office because it's a Bond movie. Your Bond fans are going to go whether to pan it or not, or to love it, or to be indifferent and debate about it like we are now. So yeah, I think Daniel Craig is a very good hardcore gritty Bond. I think that he does take some of the fun out of the franchise, some of the whimsical nature of the tech. More of the lighthearted Bond is not there in the Craig movies. So, but I think he still plays a very good. What's the first Bond book? Is it Casino Royale? Ian Fleming actually wrote pretty hardcore spy fiction, and there's a lot of nasty stuff in those books. I remember picking it up as a kid and being kind of horrified. So, I mean, I guess as far as the writing, as far as Ian Fleming's view of Bond, Daniel Craig is a bow to that for sure. Because
I'd never thought about that. The whimsy of Bond, like when you think of Bond, you don't think of whimsy, but you're right because when I think of Pierce Brosnan and you think of John Cleese, right, playing Q,
yep.
you think, you know what? That's pretty spot on. Maybe that is what it is then. It's for a kid, it's easier to watch a Bond that's more whimsical than it is to watch someone like Daniel Craig, which is it's very hyper serious.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure. Yeah, Roger Moore was the really posh, old school, upper brow Bond. Yep. I did like Roger Moore too. I mean, but yeah, I think there's two faces of James Bond, right? And different Bond actors really play to different faces. And I really do feel like the current one is more the gritty, really dark Bond. And who knows, it may fly back in the other direction. I do like the kind of the whimsical nature that, all the crazy inventions and stuff, the tech that is part of the Bond franchise, the flying cars and everything else. I do like that part of the Bond shtick, and it's not as evident in the Daniel Craig movies because they're going more serious and dark with it. But yeah, I mean, I like it all. I appreciate it all. In fact, I'm sure there are people out there writing books on just the many faces of James Bond and the different faces of the franchise that get emphasized or de-emphasized depending on who's playing the character and what the era is, right? We tend to like a lot of dystopian stuff now, or we have, and so I can see why the current serious dark Bond is very popular. But I think I like a lighter-hearted take on him from time to time. I think a tiny bit of understated British humor is really an asset in the Bond movies. But yeah, there we are. All right, so we've got some highlights. I'm lighting this up because just like here on the front of the hand, that's going to catch the light right here. But this whole back of the hand is also going to catch the light. So that's what I'm doing. That's a hard call, Val. I mean, ivory and bone are easy. There are plenty of ivory and bone triads for colors. But when you're talking about a China is various colors and it has different finishes depending on what it is. So it really, my advice to you is always to find a picture. And how shiny it is will depend on whether you go up to pure white with it or you won't.
By the way, Miss Anne, kind of in relation to what we were talking about, there have been a lot of bounce arounds on who the next actor was going to be to play the next Bond movie, since I don't think it's going to be Daniel Craig anymore.
Yeah, I think they probably want to switch it up. Yep.
Yeah, and well, he apparently in an interview, I didn't know this, in an interview back in 2015, he said, and I quote, would rather slash his wrists than do another Bond film. Yeah. I think he's kind of ready to move on.
Yeah. And, well, he's always done a lot of different stuff, and I could see how he wouldn't want to be locked into a franchise, especially such a demanding one. It is a big commitment, and I'm sure he also is afraid of being typecast as Bond, right? And not being able to move on. So,
and some of the most tossed around names here, just as a heads up, are, as an example, would be Tom Hardy, which I don't know how I'd feel about that, but I like Tom Hardy a lot. So, Tim Hiddleston, which is the guy who played Loki from the Avengers movies.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think that one would.
Interesting, yeah.
Richard Madden, which is the guy from Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
Which was what's his name? And then let's see, Michael Fassbender and Idris Elba. I would not mind seeing Idris Elba as Bond because I think he's got the suave debonair. Like I think he's a hell of an actor. So.
Yeah, what really depends is how are they going to play Bond this time around. I don't think anybody can out gritty Daniel Craig. So are they going to go back to a more lighthearted Bond? Like, this is an interesting question because that will influence who you pick, right?
I completely agree.
What
You're
part
right.
of the Yeah, go ahead.
And if they continue gritty, they are. I'm sorry. If they wanted to continue gritty, then I think Tom Hardy's the choice. But I don't know that Tom Hardy would do it as well as because it would feel very American if Tom Hardy did it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
Tom Hardy, it would feel like Americanizing James Bond, right? And that's not what it needs to be,
No,
right?
that isn't.
It doesn't.
I wouldn't do there. I wouldn't go there. Hollywood has to not go there. Let's not do it. That said, what I would like to see, even if it was a one shot, is I would like just to see a one shot female James Bond. One shot movie. Give me the female version of James Bond.
Who would you cast?
I have no idea. I'm not very good at actors and actresses because there's a lot of stuff I don't watch. There's a lot of media I don't absorb. But I would love them to try it, to see if they could make it work. Do me a one shot, even if it's a spoof. Do me something. Give me a female James Bond. I mean, this partially comes from me loving like Lara Croft, right, and Tomb Raider, and wanting more female action heroes. So, I just think it would be fun. It would be fun to do a take on that. So I don't know who I would pick for the role.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it because it would need to be someone who's not too young.
No, well, I mean, she might be too old now. You could try Uma Thurman, but she would be. I mean, with Kill Bill, she could do it. She did it with Kill Bill. But yeah, she's probably too old at this point. Who would you? I don't know. There we go.
That's the question, though. Would the female Bond need to be as striking as, or would she want to blend in more and be a little more, not so much homely, but like?
I think she needs charisma. I think whoever you pick, even if she's not the prettiest actress, needs charisma and athleticism.
Completely agree.
And that would run it. Yeah.
What's that actress from Inception? The one who's the primary actress who plays what's his name? His wife or his girlfriend or whatever at the very end.
I don't
throughout
remember.
The whole thing.
Is it Natalie Portman? Sky's Clear? No, it's May. Oh, people are still talking about
Natalie Portman would be nice, but yeah, I think they are. Yeah, they're talking about Atomic Blonde.
Oh, okay.
Not Medea. Thank you, Trash. That's as great as that sounds.
Yeah, but anyway, that's what I would like to see. I would like to see something like, I'd like to see them try it. Maybe it's not an official Bond film, but I would like somebody to do something akin that has a female secret agent who really plays on her own terms like Bond does. I want to see that sort of thing. I don't want to disempower her or make her just a pretty face or any of that crap. I want female action hero. Give me more like Lara Croft as James Bond. That sort of thing. Because I still think we've made some strides with the Wonder Woman movie and a lot of the strong superhero female heroines, but I think we need more.
You think Angelina Jolie is too old to do it?
I love Angelina, but I don't know. I mean, I think she doesn't look old, but that's because Hollywood.
Right.
The problem is that since she got the boobs, she no longer has the athletic physique you'd need.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, you're okay. Maybe Natalie Portman, because Natalie Portman's, I think,
she's got a more slim figure, yeah, and I think she'd do well at it. Yeah, and I do like Natalie Portman quite a bit.
What about what's her name who did Aeon Flux? Charlize Theron. What about Charlize Theron?
Ooh, that could. Okay,
she does a lot of those types of roles too, like Aeon Flux, and then there's this most recent Netflix film that everyone really liked, who the name I can't remember.
Yeah, I agree. And our well-made female spy movie would do very well in the U.S. Yeah, Angelina would just be Tomb Raider. I agree, because I love the first of those movies. Jodie Foster, I think, is retired, except she's just producing now. I don't think she's acting much anymore. I don't think she's quite she would do it. Although maybe. I don't know. I read an article about her a while ago that said she was very much more focused on producing than when she was on the acting thing, but I suppose she could still always take something up. All right, guys. That said, we have now gone. We're at the point where Justin must look for a raid. This has been a great show. Thank you all for tuning in and chatting with me. I didn't talk a lot about what I was doing, but I talked a little bit about what I was doing. And the front of this leg definitely is looking nice now. And in keeping with, you can see how the light here. Let me back up while Justin looks for a raid, so that you guys can see how the light falls on the model. So, one thing I could do is I could darken a little bit here because he does have kind of his body. If I want this really to look right, I need to highlight this area right here above the belt so that you can see how the light comes down, hits the top of each of these muscles, and then when the leg comes out, the light hits it. So I need to remember to highlight this area if I really want this to look right. Otherwise, I need to cast a tiny bit more shadow here because the body is kind of, over the top of this leg. And probably what I want to do is hold it under a light so that I can see for sure how my light is falling and if it's falling correctly. Yeah, and you're right, Angelina already did a spy movie with Brad Pitt.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
And I do have a raid for us. I think we're going to be raiding. You know what? Let's raid Luca.
Okay, since we just talked about him and promoted him and said that he's awesome and knows a thing or two about pizza, that makes sense. So get Luca on the subject of pizza is what I've learned from today's cast. Yeah, they did, Mr. and Mr. Smith. You're right. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming by. I'm probably going to continue him tomorrow. I want to really get some progress on here. Get him like kind of all blocked in because he's looking really awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Have a great one, everybody.
Thank you guys very much. Don't forget to catch us this afternoon for Miniature Monday, 3 p.m. I believe that is still set to go. There's no issues currently. So make sure to tune back in. You guys have about 2 hours, and then I will see your lovely faces back here. Thank you guys very much.